because I refuse to not be first.
Do we do enough? Well, I never shut up about it.
It must have been about 16, 17. We nicked their guilt rings. Right, the bouncers guilt ring.
This is no good for me. That's the reality. If you want the honest truth, and I see it every day.
This is Colin McGuigan for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. Delighted to be joined by Mike Coppinger here in Madison Square Garden. Mike, we're here for a massive fight week. It's got the big fight week feel about it. How do you think this one goes on Saturday night?
I think you have to favor Josh Taylor. I mean, Josh Taylor has fought the better competition, especially at 140. Of course, he's a 140-pounder. I think he has one of the best resumes in all of boxing. I mean, you look at, he beat Regis Prograis, close fight, but it was a clear decision win for Josh Taylor. Excellent inside fighter, really strong in the clinch, knows how to bully his way in there. Beat Jose Ramirez, dropped him twice. Don't forget the Ivan Baranchyk win. Baranchyk was a pretty good fighter at that point. Taylor beat him. So, look, Josh, obviously Teofimo Lopez, we're going off recency bias maybe, and he hasn't looked his best in the last few fights, and he's obviously a dynamic fighter. You have to favor Josh Taylor.
Teofimo Lopez, still only 25. What does a loss do for his career at this point, and where does he go if he does lose the fight on Saturday night?
Certainly, I think it depends on how he loses. I mean, if he loses a close fight, then I think it raises his stock. You know, if he gets stopped or he loses in dominant fashion, it hurts his stock a lot. But look, both guys have a lot to prove. You have Josh Taylor coming off of a fight that everyone thought he lost against Jack Catterall. I thought Sandor Martin beat Teofimo Lopez. So I think when both guys have a chip on their shoulder and both guys really in what you would call a must-win situation, that's when you get a great fight.
We've got some massive fight weeks coming up. None bigger than Spence Crawford, finally done. You broke the news of that. How excited are you for that one?
Oh, 10 out of 10, right? I mean, and I hate to give the promoters any ideas, but the reality is, if this fight happened a few years ago and we all wanted it, it wouldn't be nearly as big as it is right now. Sometimes you over-marinate the fight, so to speak, but this time it was perfect. I think the fight's even bigger than I expected. I mean, you see the reaction. I think the tweet that broke the news, I had like 5 million views or something, and just a monster fight. I think also on the heels of Gervonta Davis, Ryan Garcia, you get a lot of momentum, and you have people talking about boxing. You know, Haney Lomachenko, that helps too. So you have a lot of momentum right now, and you have to keep riding that wave, and I think you're going to ride it right into the best fight you can make in all of boxing, a real coin flip matchup.
How do you think it goes? Do you think that Crawford can get the better of Spence in this one?
From what I've seen, the fighter seems to be leaning toward Crawford. I lean to Crawford. It's a real coin flip matchup, but I just think Crawford can do more things in there. You know, he can fight southpaw, he can fight orthodox, he switches seamlessly. He doesn't really have a more dominant style at this point. And he's a mean finisher. He has a 100% knockout ratio at 147. He's incredibly strong, even though he's the smaller guy. And you look at, I know this doesn't really always matter, but he stopped Sean Porter, and Spence had a hell of a time with him. Now, Errol Spence, though, he's fought the better competition. He's definitely the bigger guy. Don't forget, Errol Spence fought at 152 in the Olympics. And he's big, he's strong. And what he does is, you know, it's a little basic maybe in what it seems, but it's incredibly effective. Great jab, constant jab, fights every second of every round, great body puncher, and the pressure never stops. He knows how to cut the ring off. I think it's going to be who's in better shape. I mean, that's going to be one of these fights that comes down to. And Terrence Crawford is a gym rat. He's always in there. But I think both guys are going to be at their tip-top, and I think it's going to be one of those fights where maybe like Haney Loma, where everyone's arguing about who won after.
Just on that Haney Loma, did you believe that was a robbery? A lot of people in boxing and a lot of people on social media are calling this a robbery. Do you believe it was?
Not at all. It's nonsense. I mean, you have to score the fight as 12 mini-fights.
How did you score it?
I had a 115, 113 for Devin Haney. I have no problem if somebody else had a 115, 113 for Lomachenko, 114, 114. But let's be real. Like, I was ringside. Like, Lomachenko would throw a punch, and sometimes it wouldn't even land. Crowd goes nuts. That influences the judges. It influences the fans watching on TV. I didn't hear the broadcast when I was scoring, but that can have an influence too, depending on what they are seeing. And Devin Haney fought a great fight. He really did. He needs to get more respect. He was crushing Lomachenko's body. Lomachenko's entire left side was all red by like the middle of the fight. I don't see any realistic way you call it a robbery. And it reminds me of 2 other fights where I had a score that people thought were, you know, was controversial. I scored Canelo Triple G 1 for Canelo. Don't kill me. And I scored Andre Ward Kovalev 1 for Andre Ward. And both times I had the same winner as the judges. So I don't think it's coincidence. I'm not talking to the judges. I'm not being an influence. I don't
think Coppinger future judge?
I hope not, but you never know. I mean, anything can happen. But I think the fans would, they wouldn't like that too much.
Mike, I want to get your thoughts on a few things. So, Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn have had a bit of a back and forth the last couple of days. I'm sure you've seen it.
Couple of days?
Well, for forever, but more so in the last couple of days on this Fury Joshua stuff. Do you believe we can see that fight, and do you think that there's a possibility we maybe see it this year?
I highly doubt it. I mean, I think that both sides do want it, but I just think when it comes down to actually finalizing a deal, there's too many egos involved. There's too much money at play. Maybe now, we talk about marinating. I think they've over-marinated this one. This one should have happened a few years ago. Now it's at the point where it's not as big as it could have been.
It's always going to be big, though.
It is, but as an American, maybe it's different. I don't really care about that fight. I want to see Fury Usyk. Let's get Fury Usyk first. Let's throw all the marbles. Then I'm more interested in seeing a Fury Joshua fight after that. But let's be real. Fury Usyk is so much bigger than Fury Joshua for boxing fans.
In terms of your inside knowledge, what do we know about this Saudi deal? What do we know that might happen in terms of this December date with the 2 fights on the one night?
I know there's a lot of interest there. The Saudis definitely want that to happen, and they have the money to make it happen. It would be tremendous. Now, the non-insider part of me, the skeptic of me, says, "Well, are we really going to see 2 fights that big on one night? We've never seen it before. Is this year going to be the year that changes? I don't know."
Well, the Saudis tend to do things we've never seen before, right?
They do. So you have to say, look, maybe they can get this done. They want to get it done. It seems like no one has a fight schedule that would block anything. So right now, it's still a possibility. Usyk's obviously going to take care of Dubois, no problem.
You think he takes care of him, no problem? And in this big, massive stadium in Poland, do you think he just walks through Dubois?
Yeah, it's no knock on Dubois. Dubois is a good fighter, and all respect to him. But Alexander Usyk is, potentially a Hall of Fame fighter. He's a pound-for-pound #1 guy for a lot of people. And I just do not see Daniel Dubois giving Usyk any problems, anything Usyk hasn't seen throughout his hundreds of amateur fights and his fights in the pros. I just don't see what Dubois.
Who does Fury fight in the interim then?
That's the issue. Fury does want to fight in the interim, and he's looking to get a fight. But there aren't a whole lot of viable, dance partners for him. I mean, Andrew Ruiz, they say, Fury claimed that Andrew Ruiz asked for $20 million. Joe Joyce, and he was going to be the guy that would fight Fury. He lost. He's going to fight Zhang in September now. So those guys are out. I mean, who are we really looking at? Who are the names that you would want to see? I mean, now we're looking at probably the third tier of heavyweights. And then if Fury fights that tier of heavyweights, everyone's complaining again anyway. So
there's always going to be a complaint. But Fury's saying that, he might go to Australia, he might fight in Australia, he might fight Dempsey McKean in Australia. Do you think that's a possibility, or is that just Fury talking?
I mean, I haven't heard anything that it's a possibility. I mean, I think what's real is that Fury desperately wants to get a fight in, and it's smart. If he's going to fight Usyk potentially in December, you don't want to go into that fight cold, with your last fight being a year ago against Derek Chisora. So I think it has to make sense financially and logistically. If not Australia, I know he has a relationship with Parker, who's from New Zealand. Maybe it happens.
Joshua, do we see him fight White again? Do you think that that's a real possibility for August, or do we wait and see if maybe this December fight gets made first before making that?
That's a real possibility more than anything else that we've talked about. I think there's a very good chance that happens. Dillian White and Joshua. I've been hearing for weeks that they're in talks for August 12th, and I think both sides want it. I think we're going to see it, but I wouldn't say it's done or anything.
That's Mike Coppinger leaking that August 12th without saying it's done to upset Eddie Hearn. Am I correct?
Say again?
You've said that without actually leaking it, so you're not upsetting Eddie, but it is done.
No, that's not the case at all. I just heard that from other people that they've been talking. I don't think it's done. If it is, I don't know it. But it just makes too much sense for everyone involved.
Last one from me. Eubank Ben. Do you think this happens? Do you think it happens soon? Does it happen in the UK or does it happen in the Middle East?
I don't want to see it.
You don't?
Not really. We're going to see Conor Ben coming off a long layoff and that all that controversy fighting a guy that just got blasted out by Liam Smith. Not the right time for it. I mean, I wanted to see it last year. I don't know that we see it. I kind of would rather see Conor Ben fight a welterweight that he was talking about, one of these welterweight names.
Give me a few names who you'd like to see Conor Ben against.
Maybe a Radzab Butayev. Maybe Keith Thurman would be great. I mean, maybe he wants to get a fight in before fighting a Keith Thurman. He hasn't fought in a while now. Thurman hasn't fought in a while either. Maybe
he's retired, right? Thurman said that he's in retirement, basically.
I don't know. I take that with a grain of salt with any fighter. I mean, Keith Thurman, I think, still has a lot left in him. So if he wants to retire, great for him. He's made a lot of money. But I think we will see Conor Ben in, some more big fights. I just don't know how big that Eubank fight is right now.
One final one, the Wood situation. Wood Warrington, do you think it happens? Do you think maybe Wood vacates the belt now and we see Ray Ford against Komletov for that vacant belt?
I guess, I don't have any information here. Is Wood going to give up a belt that he worked so hard to get back? I don't know. I know Komletov is a dangerous guy, and a guy that a lot of boxing fans don't know, but they're going to know probably soon. And, Ray Ford Komletov will be an interesting fight. Obviously, Wood Warrington is a huge fight over there, and I would love to see it, but I don't know if I want to see him give the title up after he worked so hard for it.
Lopez got the win over Michael Conlon last week. Do you think that Lopez maybe comes into this conversation now and he looks at the unifications? Obviously with Top Rank they've got Ramirez. It's a big fight. They can make that fight. I've seen some comments of Inoue moving up and Ramirez and Inoue dancing at some point. Would you like to see that?
Anything that involves Inoue I want to see. I mean, that guy I think is the best fighter out there, bar none, pound for pound #1 for me. And people are still sleeping on him. I think this guy is completely generational talent. Hall of Fame, first ballot, and hopefully he's going to be able to show more of what he can do. But, it's a little tough with the times he's fighting in Japan, but that guy's special.
Well, Mike, give me a prediction. Saturday night, Josh Taylor, Teofimo Lopez. How does it end?
I'm going to say Josh Taylor is going to get the win, and I think Josh Taylor is going to get the win.
There we go.
I think it's going to be a very good fight.
That's exclusive. Mike, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Because I refuse to not be first.
Do we do enough? Well, I never shut up about it.
It must have been about 16, 17. We nicked their guilt rings. Right, the bouncer's guilt ring.
This is no good for me. That's the reality. If you want the honest truth, and I see it every day,